JOX, Conrad Van Order here with you. Appreciate you tuning in each and every day right here on JOX. So we'll be here with you until 7 o'clock when we hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning as we try to navigate this middle part of the week, and we will get into a little bit of spring football here as basketball season is winding down. Of course, we've still got the Final Four coming up. We've got Auburn in action on Thursday there in the Final Four of the NIT as well. So we've still got a little bit of basketball to get through this week, but time to turn the page a little bit to some spring football. And what better way to do that is to kind of hit both nails on the head here. So we're going to let you listen in. This is a conversation that we were fortunate to have with Nick Kelly of AL.com yesterday on the Three-Man Front program, and we kind of get to dive into Nick with the end of the basketball season for Alabama, Nate Oates and what his future holds there in Tuscaloosa, as it appears that Greg Byrne has made it known that he is going to be retained. But what exactly does that look like? What does that mean for Coach Oates and the near future of the Alabama basketball program, as well as what's going on in spring practice there? One scrimmage in the books for the Crimson Tide as they approach A-Day. So this is Nick Kelly from AL.com talking a little bit of everything going on with Alabama athletics right now.
It was a quick trip to Chicago. How much time were you actually there?
So I got there Wednesday, came back Saturday. So a decent
Okay.
amount of time.
Okay.
Because they have availability the day before, so you got to be there for that. And yeah, game on Friday and didn't win, so came back Saturday.
All right, I want to go back to a very open and honest conversation that Nate Oates had with you guys in attendance, and we played a good bit of those. You've been around this program for the last few years, and you know Nate Oates pretty well. Was that a surprise how honest he was about his current situation and what he thinks about where he currently is and where he potentially won't be going?
Honestly, no, because Nate's just so honest in general. I mean, he is a very open person, and even he kind of made a joke about he maybe should be less honest, but Nate will usually tell you what he's thinking. I mean, he's not boring to cover. He will give you his thoughts, sometimes to a fault, but he definitely is. You can't say he's dishonest because he often gives his unfiltered thoughts.
Do you think that this team, and he's not going to come out and say this, but this particular team, did they maybe hit their ceiling if you asked him just to a man based on what they had personnel-wise and who they faced on Friday night?
I think so. I mean, it's hard because we're comparing it to past Nate Oates teams where they went to the Elite Eight last year. They went to the Final Four the year before. And this team, by those standards, they fell short of that. But to me, if they made the Sweet 16, that was going to be a success. I mean, if you go back to, I think it's February 1st, when they lost to Florida big time, the latest loss to Florida, and they were at 4-4 in the SEC at that point. I mean, the season could have really derailed there. That was a tipping point. And a lot of things weren't going right for them. That was around the time they had Bediako back. And even with him, they still were having some issues. And yeah, it really could have gone off the rails, but they found how to rally the troops and essentially get back to a spot where they were competing for a good tournament spot, and they finished second in the SEC, and everyone knows all that stuff. But yeah, to me, this was a team that had obvious flaws, and we saw a lot of them pop up. And this is also a team that didn't get much from its transfer portal class. I mean, you talk about dead money essentially on this roster. I mean, there were three guys, I believe, right, that didn't play for most of the season. And not that any of those guys were, bank breaking kind of guys, but still that's money that they spent to get those guys. And so essentially, as little as this roster they had available, and even some of the guys who didn't play, who didn't maybe meet expectations, I would say this is a really good coaching job that Nate Oates had.
Nick Kelly joins us from AL.com as we're putting a bow on the end of the men's basketball season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I want to circle back to the Nate Oates question. Based on a tweet that I saw from Greg Byrne, the athletics director at Alabama, he pointed out that Nate Oates is not going anywhere, and then he gave a link to Yay Alabama. Does that mean to, I guess, give us a precursor that maybe in the near future we're going to have maybe an extension officially announced? Is that where we're going in regards to that tweet?
Yes. And to me, that was my understanding of the situation is that was the result of Nate Oates committing to, hey, he's not going to go anywhere. They're still working on getting that contract finalized, but he's committed to being at Alabama. And to be honest, again, that goes back to his honesty. Like everything I've heard behind the scenes, people who know Nate Oates, he's not trying to leave. He wants to be here. Now, it's important that he has the resources from a roster building standpoint to be able to compete for a national title, but I think he's perfectly content being here if he has the right resources to do it. And Alabama has been increasing those resources every year. I mean, the Final Four roster was about $1 million, if not much over that. And so they've come a long way since then. And basically, as long as he has that support, he wants to be here. And Alabama's been trying to find ways to make that happen and keep supporting him. And I'm sitting in the parking lot at Coleman Coliseum right now, where I'm seeing the new arena being built. So they've done things to keep him, and so he wants to be here. And everything that he said and done has backed that up.
I guess my question is the things that he might want, and you said those resources, and that being more money available to go and get players. I saw a report where it was believed around $8 million, somewhere in that range, is what this roster cost Alabama this season. If there's a number or maybe just a grouping of this many million through this many, where does Nate Oates believe that Alabama needs to be next season to compete with the upper echelon of the SEC?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's evolving. I mean, every year we don't truly know what that number is going to be. I would say, like, first off, yes, the 8 number was correct for this season. But as far as where it needs to be to win a national championship, it's kind of a moving target because technically some of the deals were front-loaded this year. And so you still had some of the after effects of that. And so how that affects roster numbers, we'll see. But to me, and this is just complete interpretation. This isn't what Nate is saying necessarily, but to me, if they could get 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there, like that is going to be a roster that can very thoroughly compete for a national championship. It's going to be hard to get there just because Alabama is doing things the way it's supposed to be done in terms of putting things through NIL Go, which is essentially where they have deals that are true NIL deals. They have to get through the CSC, the College Sports Commission. And to do that, I mean, that takes a lot of deals to increase by multi-millions of dollars. So again, I think if you could get to that number, like, yeah, I mean, heck yeah, they'll be able to compete for a national championship, but it might not be terribly realistic. So we'll kind of see how that plays out and frankly, how the sport plays out in terms of what rosters look like budget-wise.
Nick, in regards to the ongoing saga that is Aiden Holloway, a lot of Alabama fans were texting and calling into our show last week when the judge allowed him the opportunity to leave the city limits of Tuscaloosa and travel to wherever I guess he wanted to travel to. What is the next timeline in regards to something that we may see on Aiden Holloway? Is it the university looking at his status as a student, and then from that standpoint, his legal wranglings, and then if Alabama would like to welcome him back, are those kind of the I guess the pecking order, so to speak, of Aiden Holloway?
Yeah, I would say so. We don't know essentially the status of him with the school and where he's at from the suspension standpoint, because that's not made public, those hearings with the Student Board of Conduct, or the Office of Student Conduct, I should say. So we aren't sure of that status right now. But I do know they were trying to get that done, I believe, early last week after spring break was back. So that was one step. The other thing is, yeah, the hearing on April 14th, which is with district court. And that'll take place on the 14th, and that'll have obviously legal ramifications, and that will decide things from a legal standpoint or get things moving in a certain direction. But yeah, in terms of bringing him back, I mean, all that has to play out, but I do think the door is open. Doesn't mean he will come back, but I think before all this went down, he might have been the biggest risk of departure from going to another school where someone gave him a lot of money, because a player like that, averaging 18 points a game, 43% from beyond the arc, like that's going to be high demand in the portal. And for a guy like him who maybe doesn't have the best NBA prospects, like now's your time to cash in. So before all this went down, he may have been the biggest flight risk, if you will. But now it's kind of wait and see what happens. And I do know that Alabama, obviously, they showed support for him, and Nate talked about how they care about him and love him and things like that. And so that could go a long way in helping keep him, considering what he was going through at the time. And so we'll kind of wait and see. But my understanding is the door is still open to his return so long as the necessary legal hurdles and things like that are cleared.
All right. So, Nick, with the question marks surrounding Holloway, Phylon is gone. Your best guess, try to make up what the roster looks like as far as departures and guys that you feel kind of good about coming back. I know this is tough, but
yeah, it
your
is
best.
tough. I mean, let me put it to you this way. The biggest three that I'm watching right now are Amari Allen, Hayden Sherrill, and Aiden Holloway.
Okay.
So we just talked about Holloway, and I think those are the three foundational pieces that if they can get back, they'd like to have back. Aiden Sherrill, he's going to be in high demand. I mean, he has not reached his ceiling. He's a big. He can shoot threes. I mean, he can do a lot of good stuff. And he's a guy that I expect programs with deep pockets are going to be reaching out to, trying to get. So it may be difficult to keep him. I do know there's some optimism they might be able to keep him. But again, you just don't know. I mean, it's just so hard to predict where you can even feel good about getting a guy and then a program drops a bag or offers a bunch of money and next thing you know, they're entering the portal. So yeah, it's hard to know there, but I do know that they're working on a deal. They're trying to get it done. We'll see how it goes. It might be tough to get done, but I do know they want to keep him. As far as Amari Allen, my sense with him is it's either draft or stay at Alabama. It would surprise me at this point if he were to go in the portal, but I would think that he would go through the draft process just because he is looked at as a potential draft pick, but he is not going to go out for the draft unless he has a guaranteed first-round pick. And I feel pretty confident saying that. You know, Betty Diaco a few years ago was a different situation, but I think that Amari Allen has good representation. They're not going to send him out for the draft if he's not going to be that guy where he knows he's going in the first round. So, yeah, we'll kind of see the feedback he gets, and he may be back. But if he gets really good feedback, he might not be back. So those are the biggest three I'm watching. The other guys I've heard different things about. Could stay, could leave. But to me, those three are the biggest, hey, you need to try and retain these guys. And Alabama's certainly trying to.
Finally, Nick, I know you were in Chicago, and I know you weren't around for the scrimmage that took place on Friday or to talk to folks, but I know you've been back in town a couple of days, and you're in Tuscaloosa now. What is the buzz right now around this football team as in regards to spring practice, the scrimmage from Friday? Who's looking good? What's the buzz?
Yeah, I mean, a couple names that I guess I've heard. Caleb Woodson, I keep hearing good things about, the transfer linebacker. I think he's going to do really well for this defense. I've just heard a lot of good early reviews on him. Devin Tompkins from Southern Cal, I think he's going to help this defense a lot. You hear different people talk about him and what he could bring. So those are two names that I'm watching right now. As far as the offense goes, you know, Crowell's been dealing with some injuries, so I haven't been able to maybe see as much from him or get kind of those early wow reviews, if you will, just because he's been banged up. But when healthy, I'm excited to see what he could do, or excited to hear more about what he can do. So there's just a couple early names there. I have heard some good things about Red Morgan. I mean, he's a returner, but some good things from him, and I think he's building on what he was doing the last couple of years.
That is Nick Kelly, straight back from Chicago. Did you get some pizza while you're in Chicago? Did you enjoy that?
I did. I have to give a shout out to my colleague Laura Goldman on our video team, who she used to live in Chicago, and made sure we got some good deep dish.
Awesome. Good deal.
Did you see any crime when you were up there?
Why would you ask that?
I'm just asking. It's in the news a lot. I'm just asking if you saw any.
I got ice cream is what I did, and went to the Giardelli, or how do you say that?
Giardelli?
The chocolate store.
Yeah.
Giardelli, thank you. And got some ice cream there. So that was good. That's what I did. Pizza. So a lot of dairy was my experience.
A lot of
that's
dairy.
all I can speak to there.
Well, I mean, you're from the upper Midwest, so I mean, you guys are
Cheese
used to-
curds and
yeah, you're used to a lot of stuff like that.
I am, but I'm
cream of wheat.
I'm lactose intolerant, so it's a constant struggle for me because I love dairy. It's great, but
Dairy doesn't love
me.
you.
No.
That's what pills are for.
Or your derriere. I understand.
Wow. Once
This thing really
again,
unraveled.
I know. I mean, it starts out with Conrad. He kind of set the tone by making you late to this interview, and then now Landrum ending it with your lactose intolerant stuff. So
We're having a conversation.
That's why I
Human
joined
stuff.
the show. I never know what I'm going to get. It's never boring.
It's real life stuff, Pat.
We
I'm
kinda
trying
like
to
to
help
mix
Nick
it
with
up.
this problem.
is that what it is?
If he admits it's a problem, that's the first step.
Okay.
Nick, I'm sorry you have to deal with them.
It's all right. We're again. I expect it every time I hop on this show.
Good.
All right. Well, enjoy Tuscaloosa, and we'll catch up with you soon, Nick.
Glad we're meeting your expectation.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
Too.
That is Nick Kelly from AL.com, covers the University of Alabama athletics. He was on the Higginbotham hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damian here with you for about the next 40 minutes as we let you hear a little bit of our conversation we had with Nick Kelly on three-man front yesterday, kind of diving into the end of the Alabama basketball season and what's next for Nate Oates there and the future of the Crimson Tide, as well as a little bit of football. But we can keep that going here just a little bit because we do have a little bit of college football news to get to, as well as just a few notes, other things from what's going on with Alabama and their spring practice. We've got Auburn coming up on Thursday. They're going to have their first scrimmage of spring practice, and Alex Golish is going to meet with the media at some point on Friday afternoon to kind of give us an update on all of that. And so we'll have more on Auburn in the coming days and what's going on there. But Alabama already had their first scrimmage, so a couple of news and notes from there. We'll start off, obviously, I'm sure many of you have probably seen the video of Ryan Coleman Williams from last Friday, in which he had 3 touchdown catches, including one that was a 70-yard touchdown from Keelan Russell. That was, again, it's early on in a scrimmage, but those are the kinds of things that you like to see, and especially after the season that Ryan Coleman Williams had last year. It's nice to see, again, the flashes of what you thought you were going to be getting in 2025, maybe coming in 2026. He also had a contested catch there in the end zone over Jordan Edmonds, which was nice to see because he obviously had some troubles with drop passes at times last year. And so that's an early positive. There's no doubt about that. As far as the quarterbacks go, not a ton of separation going on right now, but that's not a bad thing because it means, based on what people are saying, that they are both playing at a high level. So you had Keelan Russell with multiple touchdown passes on Friday. He did also throw a pick 6 to go along with that. But again, I mean, it's, these are the kinds of things that are going to happen. And the expectation from people that are there on the staff and around the program is that both of these guys are guys that will be playing on Sundays in the future. And again, it's kind of like we've been talking about leading up to the spring and through the early parts of the spring. It's not necessarily a case of, well, Austin Mack wins the job or Keelan Russell wins the job, and so the other guy's not any good. It's just more so a case of they're both seem to be really good, and one of them's just going to have, I mean, you're going to have a starter, right? And that's why, the expectation is that probably early on in the season, right, you start with, East Carolina, for example, probably going to play both of your quarterbacks in that game. And you may even have some opportunities in the first couple of games to get both of them some reps and kind of continue that evaluation process there. But both quarterbacks still looking good and as advertised, but nobody really separating as far as the competition goes, at least up to this point in the spring. But you're going to have one more scrimmage coming up, and then you're going to, of course, have a day. So I guess technically 2 scrimmages still coming up. So time for some separation there, no doubt about it. And then on the offensive line, quickly, kind of some different rotations going on the offensive line at times. So we know Jackson Lloyd, according to Ryan Grubb, at least early on in spring camp, like he is the left tackle. There's barring injury, he is going to be your starting left tackle. And I guess the early indications from him are that he's still playing at a high level. But I know Kalen DeBoer made some comments, or essentially of the nothing critical of Jackson Lloyd, just the, all right, yeah, you're the guy, but like that doesn't mean that you just kind of ease up now and go, oh, all right, well, the job's mine, so I'm not going to apply myself to give 110% in practice, that kind of thing. And there's no indication that that's happening. But just making sure, again, that mentally, you've got the right mindset, even if it looks like that position is clearly settled at left tackle there with Jackson Lloyd. You have Javen James, the guy who transferred in from Mississippi State. He's getting a lot of looks at right tackle. And then you have Michael Carroll, who was the right tackle and got a lot of reps there last year, moving inside to right guard. And that's one of the things that they've said they really like about Carroll is kind of just his versatility, his ability to play both guard and tackle there on the offensive line. So right now, I guess the idea of what the offensive line is going to look like, and keep in mind that William Sanders is out with an injury, and he's somebody that figures to factor in at the very least as a big rotational piece, if not a starter eventually. But right now, the offensive line is, I guess, for the most part, looking like Jackson Lloyd at left tackle, Nick Brooks, the Texas transfer, at left guard, Rayson Delgado, the transfer center, from Cal Poly. Then you have Michael Carroll at right guard and Javen James there at right tackle. And of course, I mentioned William Sanders still injured there, so not as big of a factor here in the spring. A couple of other guys, Ethan Fields and Caden Strayhorn, two more transfers, are getting some, encouraging things being said about them, but maybe just taking a little bit more time to kind of come along there. And I guess the thing now is trying to get that depth up to par for what you're going to need once you get into the fall and through the rigors of an SEC regular season. But yeah, from what I've heard, they feel really good about the 5 guys that they would have starting right now. They're just looking to develop more of that depth behind those 5 guys, so that they're, you never know what could potentially happen there. I was told the tight ends played really well on the first scrimmage as well, did a really good job blocking, and the offensive line as a whole did a much better job blocking. And then the defensive line maybe not getting as much of a push early on in spring practice as they were hoping to see. And so I guess that's where, again, is it because the offensive line's playing really well, or is it because, the offensive line's also playing well because the defensive line's not very good? Or are they just taking a little bit longer to come along? But obviously you've got, a number of transfers, a number of new faces there on both sides of the ball. And so those groups will take a little while to get going, but that's the early indication, at least, is that the offensive line may be looking a little bit better than the defensive line. And of course, the big highlight that everyone saw was Ryan Coleman Williams, and what he did in the scrimmage on Friday. So that's certainly some good news there. But that's just the scuttlebutt coming out of Tuscaloosa after last week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's early on in the spring, and I think because we had seen so much, and really and truly, even in the span of 1 week, because we saw Ryan Coleman Williams, the drop that he had in Ty Simpson's pro day, it felt good to know that when he, when the lights are on him, he goes out there and performs. And I think that, there was a sophomore slump last year, but if we get any signs that he's trending more towards what we saw as a freshman, because again, he's put it on tape, so we know exactly what his potential could be. And I think a lot of the spotlight is on him. But I also think that when you look at the receiver room, you got Sadarian Morgan coming in, you've got Lotzier Brooks, who developed pretty much week in and week out. You still have some guys out there, but it's all about who's throwing him the football. So, to hear that both guys are competing, and I don't know if Kalen DeBoer is probably going to have a quote unquote QB1 coming out of spring practice, but you at least know what the foundation looks like. And sometimes, again, there's guys that, that shine in scrimmage time and may not do the best things in drill work, or, when they go into team individuals period, things like that. So you got to see what it looks like when the bullets are flying. And from everything that we're hearing, you still got to figure out the situation with the offensive line. You got to have your best 5 guys, and then everybody else, you're just building depth. So as long as you're not hearing anything catastrophic from the first scrimmage, it seems like everything went rather well. And like you point to is the offensive line, defensive line, you'll never really know until you're going against somebody else how to really grade out how the trench play is. Skill wise, you kind of get a good read. But when it comes to just because everything is in tandem, like you got to have your first 5, you got to have your second 5 to kind of see where everything is. But when it comes to trench work, that's more of a we'll see that week 1 as to get that question answered. So, as long as nothing too catastrophic has happened, I think everything went well in the first scrimmage.
Yep. So that's the latest out of Tuscaloosa. What's going on there with the Alabama Crimson Tide? But we've got some changes coming for the college football playoff, and how the 12 teams will be selected and who will be selecting them. And we will give you the latest, including a very familiar name here in the state of Alabama, as we move along here on the Tuesday edition of Morning Jocks. 6:33 here on your Tuesday. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell with you here on Morning Jocks as we continue the college football conversation for a little bit longer here on the program, as we've got a couple changes, some new things coming with the college football playoff and the selection committee this upcoming year. But before we get to that, quick shout out to the Atlanta Braves. They got a big win 4-0 over the Athletics last night, so the Braves moved to 3-1. Definitely a much different start to the season than last year when they were 0-7. So on the starting off on the right foot this year, nonetheless. So a nice win there for the Braves. And of course, as a reminder, you can hear the Braves right here on JOX 94.5, as we know many of you chime in and listen to the Bravos that way. But we also want to tell you about our friends at Train, because flu season is still hanging around and pollen season is right here, right around the corner. So make your home healthier with Train's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles that cause allergy and virus. It's 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you today online at train.com. All right, getting to the college football playoff selection committee. So yesterday it was announced that there would be 3 new members of the selection committee. And of course, they're the ones that are charged with, they're the ones that come up with the rankings every week once you get towards the end of the season, and they debate and come up with their own rankings. And then they go back and forth. And I guess they try their best. I'm trying to be nice here. They try their best to put the 12 best teams, or however you want to phrase it, into the college football playoff each and every year. And you're going to have 3 new faces in there now. And I, for one, am happy to see that another former head coach is getting an opportunity to be on the committee, because I think many of us would agree that if you had to pick and choose kind of who you wanted on the committee, that it would probably be primarily people that were former head coaches and know the game very, very well. Not saying that these other people aren't around college football, but I just find it hard to believe that they would know better than a head coach, especially one that's been in the game in the last couple of years. And so you've got a couple of new coaches, actually. You've got 2 of them that are going to be joining the selection committee this year. But first off, Louisiana AD Brian Maggard. He is going to be one of the new members of the selection committee. And he will be joined by 2 former head coaches. So you've got former Cal head coach Jeff Tedford. He was announced yesterday as one of the new members of the selection committee. He's also been a coach at Fresno State in the past. And the name that got the most attention, and that many people here are going to be very familiar with, of course, is Gus Malzahn, the former Auburn, UCF, Arkansas State head coach, FSU offensive coordinator. You go down the list there of what all he's done. But yes, he will be one of the new members of the selection committee. So I know a lot of people were, joking yesterday of, oh, well, Alabama's never going to get in if they're on the bubble again, and then Auburn's always going to get in if they're on the bubble again. I look at this as, again, it's somebody that's had experience in multiple. I mean, he's been in recent years in the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC now. But I would imagine that is somebody that you would like to have on the committee, from my perspective, as somebody that can advocate for the difficulty of playing in the SEC, what it's like on a week-in and week-out basis. And I think, if anything, it is going to, and maybe it doesn't benefit it at all, but I would think it's certainly not going to hurt anybody in the SEC, in my opinion. He's not – they're not going to put him on the selection committee if they know, well, if he's going to be biased against Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think he'll do a great job, and I was, again, excited to see 2 new head coaches be put on at the selection committee. So there's now 4 sitting head coach or former head coaches sitting on the selection committee. There were 3 last year, so that's a slight bit of an improvement there nonetheless. Unfortunately, though, this did also come with the news that Hunter Yurchek's going to be back as the head of the committee, so he'll be the guy talking on the ranking shows every week yet again.
Would you rather have him or Boo Carey?
Boo Corrigan. Hunter Yurchek is a disaster at that, and he was awful. He was absolutely terrible, and I think it's, in my opinion, kind of a slap in the face to college football fans that he would get to do it again this year, but nonetheless, he will. So, he was terrible.
No, he really was. Like it's one thing to kind of be.
I don't care about Arkansas. Like, what do I have to?
Right.
Why would I defend him? I don't care.
It's one of the things. Like, I felt as though he was always. it's almost like the questions that Reese Davis and the guys would ask him, and he was never prepared for. It's almost, okay, you don't have to tell us everything that you discussed in the meeting room, but when we're asking for transparency on how everything looked, he did more deflecting and I guess not explaining the data points and exactly where we were looking for.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I do think the more football guys that you have, and even girls as well, but more head coaches that you have, especially for Coach Malzahn, who is he's bridged the gap. Like, he's not so far removed from how football is. I mean, this man was an offensive coordinator just last season. So he has a good feel of just how teams are, how a team is supposed to look, where we're starting to have these discussions on data points, and he's going to have an opinion that's going to, I think, weigh a lot more than, not to say the athletic directors, because athletic directors do have a lot on their plate, but they may not be able to just kind of sit down and look and just say, hey, coach. Like, to me, I think he's a great sounding board. Any former head coach, especially at the level of head coaching experience that they've had and coaching experience they've had, you need that sounding board of, okay, well, this team may have looked great in the beginning of November, but now here we are at the end of November, and what exactly do we need to look at? Have they lost a step? Have they lost a player as far as when you're able to rank? Because to me, I think the selection committee, it has to be, you have to take it week by week. Like, I genuinely think that, you can tell me that Indiana, Ohio State, for a majority of the time, they are the number 1 and number 2. But everything after that, because there was so much, I guess you'd say, chaos, especially the last month of the season, that, you may have a team that's slotted at number 4 this week, but if they don't look like the number 4 team in the nation, don't be afraid to knock them down. I think that you're going to get those kind of conversations from sitting head coaches or former head coaches, more along the lines of an athletic director who may not have truly just watched the ball. Like, I look at coaches like this, him and Coach Tedford, man, they know ball. And not to say that other people don't, but they have skin in the game. Like, they know exactly what it takes and what a team is supposed to look like if we're talking about college football playoff, not the teams that are, their record may be good, but who'd they beat? Like, those are the conversations they're going to have and they're going to drive that I think is going to be better for the College Football Playoff Committee as a whole.
Well, and the reality of it is, like, again, not saying that some of these people don't know what they're talking about, but okay, if you're an athletic director, you're responsible for a lot more than just football, right? Like, you've got a lot of other things going on. Whereas if you're Gus Malzahn, you're probably, you're pounding tape, right? Like, right. You're going to maybe be a little more locked into, I guess, maybe the finer details of things that are going on. And you might catch some things that other people miss, not because they're not trying to do their job, but because they've got to wear multiple hats. They're not just a football person. And so I certainly think that's a benefit of having these coaches on there. And so, again, there'll be 4 coaches on the committee this year, more than the 3 that you had last year. You've also got, in addition to Malzahn and Tedford, you're going to have Mark D'Antonio, the former Michigan State head coach. He was on it last year too, but he's going to be on there again. And then you also have Mike Riley from Oregon State and Nebraska. He's also going to stay on the committee for another year this year. So, again, there's your 4 head coaches or former head coaches that will be a part of the selection committee. And we will, I'm sure we will have nothing to complain about this fall when they start getting together and revealing their initial rankings, because that's not how it goes it's
always flawless
every single year. Yeah. Well, I know I was, not very kind to Hunter Yurchek and what he did. My hope is that now that you've got a year under your belt, and I understand he was thrown into an awkward situation last year with Mack Rhodes and that whole situation, and him not. Hunter Yurchek wasn't supposed to be the spokesperson for the committee, but he had to be because of what Mack Rhodes did in his departure from Baylor. And I guess I just hope that not that I don't think he'll take it seriously, but I just hope that he has maybe heard some of the criticisms and is going to do a good job of being more transparent and being more honest with things, because, I don't think it's a good look for college football when you have a ranking show on Tuesday and you can tell that Reese Davis is openly getting agitated with Hunter Yurchek because he's not answering questions directly, like straight up easy softball questions that he can't give an answer to. That's what I think we're all looking for. It shouldn't be a case of, well, how are you going to weigh conference championship games? Is that going to have a negative impact potentially on teams in the college football playoff and where they stand right now? that shouldn't be a hard question to ask. That shouldn't be like well, we're not going to tell you so that we can do whatever we want. You got to have an answer to that. You've got to have those things ready and that information ready to go for the college football fans so that they understand what they're getting themselves into. And I understand it's a TV show and they're trying to draw it out and make it dramatic and have all of this, kind of mystery around it so that people will want to tune in. But it doesn't help when you feel like somebody who's in charge of making the decisions and in charge of communicating those decisions has no clue what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bad look for the game of college football, and that can't happen again. So I hope that gets better. We will see. But I guess best case scenario is it's only one more year and then we'll move on to somebody else that'll probably do a bad job. So, because as you can tell, I have not been a fan of the committee so far.
I see.
And hopefully hopefully my perception of them will change at some point here in the near future. But we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450. If you've got thoughts on Gus coming and joining the college football playoff selection committee, it's good to know he's got something to do in retirement. That'll be good for him. I think he'll have a lot of fun. And if anything, people will be like, God, no, Gus, I don't want to watch more film. That would be a good problem to have.
Exactly.
I think that's a good problem to have in that room there. So we'd love to hear from you, 205-834-9450. We'll come back, put a bow on things here as you're listening to Morning Jocks.
6:49 here on Morning Jocks. Damian and Conrad here with you for a few more moments as we get you set for McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Let me tell you about our friends at Hometown Roofing and Restorations. Trust the experts for your roofing needs. Over 1,200 roofers in the Birmingham area. Make sure you can call someone you can trust. Hometown Roofers is family owned, grounded in faith, and community oriented. Their customer satisfaction focuses with your needs in mind, so you can count on honest communication. Listen, guys, the goal is to get it right the first time. If it's an insurance claim, call Hometown. They'll take the ball for you, so you don't have to worry about the red tape and back and forth with the insurance company. Only top quality materials. Hometown is certified with 2 of the national brands of shingle, and they offer lifetime material warranties. Financing is also available. Wonder if you have an aging roof or roof damage? Hometown offers free inspections. Also rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can also handle siding, windows, gutters, and minor remodels. Give them a call at 205-984-4777 or visit their website, htsroofers.com. Again, that number is 205-984-4777 or visit their website at htsroofers.com. Hometown Roofing and Restorations. Do it right the first time.
All right, so the women's Final Four is now set in college basketball there, as unsurprisingly, all 4 of the number 1 seeds have gone and made their way through the tournament, and we have 2 great matchups that are going to be coming up starting on Friday there in the women's part of the bracket, and we've got some wonderful SEC representation, so half the bracket from the SEC. You've got South Carolina. They punched their ticket to their 6th straight Final Four yesterday with a big win over TCU. You have Texas. They're also going to be making a trip to the Final Four. And so South Carolina and UConn, they're going to be doing battle on Friday. That'll be a 6 o'clock tip there. And then the night game will be UCLA and Texas. So the hope is that, maybe you have a South Carolina, Texas for the that would be the 4th time they would have played this year.
Mm-hmm.
If they do end up meeting up again. Texas won 2 of the first 3, including winning the SEC tournament championship game there over South Carolina. But as it stands right now, Texas is a 1.5-point favorite over UCLA. UConn is a 6.5-point favorite over South Carolina. And the reality is UConn's won 54 games in a row, I think it is now. So they're probably going to win it all again. But there's you have the chance. There's a chance.
There's a chance.
There's absolutely a chance for Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks. But yeah, I mean, UConn's just, again, they are a buzzsaw like they typically are in the college game. But that was 2 SEC teams, so we don't have any left in the men's tournament, but we got 2 in the women's tournament, so that's better than nothing.
Yeah, and also we got a chance to knock off a Big Ten school in UCLA.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The Big Ten. Historic program from the Big Ten, UCLA.
Yep, the most historic Big Ten program.
Yep.
That's what I've always heard about UCLA. That's definitely them. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out there for the wonderful SEC representation that we're going to have coming up there in the women's Final Four. But we go to some of your texts now, 205-834-9450, and a couple people chiming in on the College Football Selection Committee for the playoff, and Gus Malzahn, if you missed it, he's going to be one of the newest members of the selection committee. Hunter Yurchek is going to return once again as the chairperson, so he will be the one that you see on the television on Tuesday nights when they do the ranking show. Later on, I guess starting in November, so we've got a while to mentally prepare ourselves before we get into all of that good stuff. But this text just rolls in. It says, "I hope Gus keeps Alabama out of the playoffs." WDE.
Hey, they tell us they've shown that they leave their biased hats at the door. Whenever they go into the meeting room, they leave them at the door.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Or they recuse themselves and they exit the room and let the other people have that conversation there. It's just funny that, and again, like, you get it from both sides of things, but it's like this guy, like the text in that he texted in 2 days or 3 days ago and said, "Michigan by 90, go to hell, Alabama." And then the text before that was Nate Oates is leaving. I appreciate like that.
It's consistent.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you're a hater, be consistently a hater. I respect it. We welcome the haters here on Morning Jocks. We're here for it. We're always here for it. Let's see. Andrew chimes in. He says, "Let's get Cat Williams to be the spokesperson for the playoff committee."
Well, there'll be some honesty. Also, I don't think his wheelhouse is college football.
No, but it'd be entertaining.
100%.
I would be
even just let him be the spokesperson. Just, hey, whatever the meeting was, let him go out there and speak.
Let's see. This one rolls in. It says, do y'all think Hunter took some public speaking classes? Also, I'm an Alabama fan, but I do think Gus will actually be a good addition. Yeah,
Oh,
I
100%.
think he will be. And I hope so on the first part. Again, I'm sure he's a fine public speaker. It's just,
He was thrown in the fire.
yeah, and don't make very cringy jokes like trying to relate to
the 6'7".
9-year-old kids when you're doing the college football player. Yeah, it was, oh my gosh. Oh,
That 6'7" spot.
it was,
Yeah, it was tough.
what a
It's tough.
What a guy. What a guy. Jonathan chimes in. He says, oh, see, here you go. He says, Auburn just making a bowl game would be a miracle. So I guess Gus won't.
He
have
ain't
to
got no
help him out.
control in
Yeah,
that.
I see what you're doing there. Jamie chimes in. He says, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through all of this, but the gist of it essentially is I think Ryan Williams is soft. I don't think there's any dog in him at all. I know Damien understands what I'm talking about. He came from a really good program in high school, and he didn't have to dig down deep to gather himself to play on Friday nights, and now he's just another player.
I think that's a little unfair, but
To each their own,
to each
Jamie.
their own, man.
Hey, we're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. McElroy and Kublick in the morning is next.